Well, so as probably most of you know, last weekend was Ram Awakening, and it's a retreat for college students if you didn't know about that. And as goes with retreats like this, it's much like Acts or Crucio in a lot of ways. There's talks, there's time to pray, there's time to share. And as goes with some of these things, sometimes it can be very difficult to stay awake because they're very full. They've got just a lot of good stuff happening and it's hard to fit it all in. And I think God bless all of you guys. I think y'all did a good job staying awake and staying focused and vigilant in all of that. And since I started in this role at the Newman Center, my whole sleep schedule is all sorts of weird and messed up because you guys like to do things later. Mornings are not a thing. So I've adapted that in my own life. Basically, I'm saying all of this because sleeping is a difficult reality. We do need to get a certain amount of sleep. But then in the gospel reading, we hear it says, "Therefore stay awake, for you don't know on which day your Lord will come." And if the master had known that the thief was breaking into his house, he would have stayed up and prevented it from happening. So what do we do with that? Well, thankfully, for all of you English majors out there, this is a term you understand, but hyperbole is a thing. And what hyperbole is it's whenever you take something to the extreme or to the absurdity to try to make a point. So, for instance, in another passage, Jesus says, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. I'm hoping that's hyperbole, because I kind of need my hands, or I'd like to have my hands. The point he's trying to make when saying these things is, if there's anything in your life that causes you to sin, you need to remove it, because it's not going to help you to go where you want to go. And so Jesus saying today in the gospel, stay awake, is saying, stay focused. Pay attention. Don't let all the other stuff distract you, because that's when the thief comes in and takes everything you've got. So we're starting today with the Advent season. We've lit the first candle, and the word Advent is a compound Latin word that's ad venire, to come. This is a season where we're focused particularly on the coming of Christ, that he will come, that's something we can actually count on, even though it's 2,000 years later and we feel like it's never going to come. Even though whatever things we're struggling with in life, we feel like will never end, that they can have an end, they will have an end, because Christ has conquered the powers of sin and death. That this can look like salvation. And so, stay awake. St. Paul has advice for us from the letter to the Romans, our second reading. So let us conduct ourselves properly as in the daylight, after he just said, stay awake. This is the hour for you to wake from sleep. Let us not conduct ourselves in orgies or drunkenness or promiscuity and lust, not in rivalry or jealousy, because these things can very easily distract and tempt. They sound exciting. They sound like they have so much promise in them. And waiting is boring. Waiting sounds like sleepy work. I know whenever I'm listening to somebody too long, I can start feeling like nodding off. And again, that's why I was impressed with how the students did with this retreat. Because weeks are long, days are long, and yet you're trying to stay focused and attentive. Think about the classes, especially as breaks coming very quickly. It's going to be very hard to stay awake and focused on what needs to be focused on when you want to just be done. The same thing happens with Christ. Stay awake and focused on him, because everything else wants to distract you, because the evil one's very much alive and doesn't want you to focus on Christ, because then things might change, because then his coming might be realized at least in your heart, even if it isn't today. So please stay awake. You don't know when the hour is, but I promise you it will come.